Cut.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Joelle is joining us again today for another interview. This is part 2, so I hope you find it useful and enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm JOELLE OWUSU-SEKYERE and I'm a commissioning editor at Coronet, which is an imprint of Hodder and Stoughton. Who's the person I contact most often? I guess it would be my boss, Hannah, our publisher at Coronet. I basically message her 5 or 6 times a day, and we usually do talk every day, which is really, really good. And I do think having that relationship and not being scared of your boss as well, having someone who's genuinely kind and genuinely nice and, you know, is here to help and like encourage me and also guide me as my boss has just been amazing. I speak to her a lot, and sometimes it's not even work related. Like, I've cried. Sometimes when my life's been a mess, I'm just like with tears down my face, and it's just nice to have a boss who cares for a start. I'm just so lucky to have her as my boss. My favourite part about my job actually is working with the authors and their agents. I am a massive advocate for author care, and so for me what that means is not just being someone that they hear on the phone every so months or see on a laptop screen or even meet up, like someone who is a genuine friend and someone who actually, you know, wants to make their book the best it can be. I love all my authors. They're all very, very different and they all demand different things from me. Just seeing them kind of grow as writers and then seeing, you know, an idea that they once had actually become something that they can hold in their hands. It's just such a joy to see. And their agents as well, because we're all kind of striving towards that common goal of producing an amazing book that, you know, people love to read and love to review and has a long shelf life, hopefully. Working with them for about a year, sometimes more, from, you know, the kind of introductory meeting to, you know, the launch party or to, you know, events afterwards when their book is actually something physical that, you know, we've all worked on. That is the greatest feeling in the world and one of my favourite things about this job. What's the most challenging part of my job? I'd say just because I think I have thick skin, but I think I still need to develop a thicker skin. I think actually losing a book. So what that means is that if multiple publishers are interested in a book, it becomes a competitive situation where you all compete in an auction. And sometimes it is, you know, the highest bidder who gets the book. So sometimes it doesn't matter if, you know the author and, you know, they know you, they know your vision for it. You know, if you don't offer enough and it goes really, really high and you have to pull out, you have to step away from the project, or you just don't get the project because it went to someone who bid more for it, that can be really, really, really painful. It can be really heartbreaking when you've had your heart set on it. You can already see the cover, you already see your vision of the marketing and the PR and publicity, and then the agent calls you and it's like, oh, we've accepted another offer from another publisher. Like, it is like a dagger to the heart. Like, it feels like I'm in mourning. Like, I'm grieving a project that, you know, I would have loved to have gone to me. But it is what it is, and this is a business and the game's the game. I'm getting better now because I used to cry when a book that I really wanted just went elsewhere, and now I'm just like, you know what, all the best with it. You know, I'll still be supporting, I'll still be reading. But yeah, I need a bit of thicker skin because boy, I used to take it very personally, but none of this is ever personal, really. It is, you know, publishing is a business at the end of the day. There's money to be made. It's really, really challenging for me, just accepting rejection, accepting defeat and loss. It's painful, but it's part of the job. Coronet, which is an imprint of Hodder and Stoughton, which is a division of Hachette, or Hachette if you are French, has a lovely, lovely, lovely office space called Carmelite's House, which is near Blackfriars, if you're familiar with London, and it's on the river. And it's a massive building, beautiful, stunning. And there's even a rooftop where you can sit and overlook the River Thames and overlook London, and it is beautiful. Recently, I've been working from home a lot more. When I say working from home, I work from my bed a lot, and it has completely messed up my back, if I'm going to be honest. I'm 27 and now need to see a chiropractor because I just sit in my bed like this, like a little gremlin, and I find it fine, to be honest. I'm just used to so many people around me, and I can just swivel in my chair and just talk to this person, talk to that person, and everyone's available on email and everything like that. But it's been weird. I think at the start it was just strange. I did like the freedom, but the one thing I would say is that because I've made this mistake before, in meetings where your camera is on, you still need to wear trousers. If you accidentally knock your laptop and the camera goes down and suddenly you have 100 people looking at your crotch with no trousers on or anything like that, it's absolutely mortifying. Or if you have to suddenly get up because your doorbell rings and you don't turn your camera off and they can see that you weren't wearing anything. That's happened to me, and it was, I think that was my first or second week of work, actually. That was absolutely mortifying, but it is what it is. So yeah, wear trousers if you're working from home, and if you're having meetings, please. One interesting fact about my company is that we're all women, and it's fabulous. So in Coronet, we're quite a small team, but we're all women, which I think is absolutely wonderful. You know, from the assistant up to the publisher and editorial director and me, the commissioning editor, we are all women. Being part of a team like that has just been really interesting in a good way, and it's been really refreshing, actually. I just think it's absolutely phenomenal to be a part of this team who we all have very different lists. We have very different authors and very different titles and different things that we're looking for with our fiction and non-fiction lists. At the end of the day, it's mainly, you know, books by, I hate saying strong women because every woman is strong, whether they know it or not. Just these powerful stories. And for me, it's people telling their truths as well. So not just women, men and people telling their stories and speaking their own truths. I really, really enjoy. Up the women. One interesting story about something I've done at work is really fighting for a book. Really, really fighting, kind of a, you know, against the odds. It's a book that I sadly can't announce yet. We'll be publishing in 2022. I'm a massive, massive fan of the author. Huge, 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 huge fan. When I heard about the book, I just gasped because I just didn't know that this person was a writer. I didn't know they were writing a book or anything like that. And I just could not believe that the agent had emailed me through another colleague and sent me the proposal. I just couldn't believe it. I was just stunned, and I just made it my goal to get this book by hell or high water, because I just thought, no, please let me publish this. I have a vision, I have a plan. It was that rush, and then I moved heaven and earth. I genuinely moved heaven and earth just to really power through and just to get as many people in our company on board as possible to make the best offer possible. And I even got to meet with the author, and it was just the most sensational moment and a real publishing highlight, a career highlight for me. And then, yeah, I won the book in the auction. Fabulous, fabulous moment for me as a commissioning editor. I've never actually worked so hard before in my life for a book, just in the kind of pre-acquisition stage. Never worked so hard. And so I'm glad that it finally paid off in the end. So common career paths for a commissioning editor or an acquiring editor, basically the same thing. Sometimes you can be promoted to a senior commissioning editor, and sometimes you can even become editorial director, where you get a lot more responsibility, and sometimes you can actually work across 2 or multiple imprints in that role. You can also become the publisher as well, which is the head of the imprint as well. And that is a lot of responsibility. Sounds like a really cool job. But yeah, you're the main manager. You really steer the ship of your publisher, and you're the face of your publisher as well. So those are usually the steps above, and there are multiple paths to get there. If you're a good editor for a start, and you know, if you commission great books that get lots of traction, get lots of attention, you know, ideally sell well as well and are just really well received and have long shelf lives. Usually promotions are plenty, and you can kind of rise up in those roles after, I mean, it could be months if you're lucky, but usually a certain number of years. Once you've kind of proved your worth in salt, then you get into those positions. Yeah. One thing I've learned about the publishing industry is that nepotism is rife. There's lots of nepotism. Sadly, there are more Black people now. What I've been realizing for the past 5 years is that as great as it is to have, you know, more Black people, Asian people, mixed, you know, people of color, I just noticed that sometimes publishing can be a revolving door for people of color because they often do internships and then disappear because they weren't actually offered a role after their internship, you know, regardless of how well they did. Publishing still kind of pats themselves on the back for being like, yeah, we've had, you know, we've had 6 Black and Asian interns. Oh yeah, we've had this amount of this amount of this. But how many have you promoted to an editorial assistant or a commissioning editor? How many of them have actually gone up into the business to be the managers, to be a head of department? Not many. And I know sometimes people praise publishing for having more women, because there are more women in publishing, British publishing, than men. But if you really deep it, when you really break it down, most of the men are heads of departments. And most of the men are in big managerial positions, whereas most of the women are editors, the assistants, the interns. You know, in the hierarchy, they are the base, they're the larger base. And the higher up you go, men. I think that's a problem. And also white men. It's still quite rare to find a Black person, you know, an Asian or mixed, you know, person of colour in a managerial or in a head of department role, which is really sad. Things are changing. There are some, but some is not a lot. Some is some. I think even maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, they were like, oh, nothing we can do about it. It is what it is, you know, it's a meritocracy. They got the job because they were great. And I just don't think that's the truth at all. That's something that I've learned about the industry, and it's not just publishing, I guess, it's basically every industry on this planet. I do think that everyone has their eye on the publishing industry, rightfully so, because we are the gatekeepers to literary culture. And so if all the heads of departments, or if all the people in the leading positions, if they all look the same or came from the same background of maybe doing English at Oxford or Cambridge or whatever, whether they like it or not, they are not helping the situation. Their minds aren't as open, they're not tapped into other cultures, other subcultures. You know, we're not creating art and we're not listening to a diverse range of authors, which is really sad actually. Things are changing and I'm doing my little bit to help with that. But unless we see more Black women, for example, in higher roles, then not much is going to change. I'm going to really out myself here, aren't I? Okay, here's the thing, right? Because I came from a science background, I really had to learn the jargon on the job. And you know, sometimes when you've got the job, you have this imposter syndrome. You're scared you're going to be found out. You don't want people to think you're an idiot. And so you just kind of go along with all the jargon. I did not have a clue. When someone said, do you think this book should be Demai or Royal? I did not know what that meant. And I couldn't even make up anything because I did not know what a Royal hardback was or a Demai hardback. And they're actually sizes of books. Mainly for hardback books. But how was I meant to know? And so I just remember being like, let me think about that. Let me think. And then I'm on my phone being like, I didn't even know how to spell Demai at that point, but I was like, what is Demai? What is Demi? What is Royal, whatever. And then I got the dimensions and then I actually wrote them down, and I still have that notebook to this day, which I add to almost every day. And it's basically a word bank of all the publishing jargon, because there is so much jargon. There is so much jargon, and it's actually just there's just so much of it, and people speak in code and it's like they're speaking Russian to you. Honestly, it's really stressful sometimes, where you're expected to know what all these acronyms and what all these terms mean, and you just have no idea. I'm getting a lot better at just stopping people and saying, oh sorry, could you explain that? Sorry, I'm not familiar with that term. But beforehand I used to sit there like, yeah, the TMC, yeah. Not a clue, mate. Not a clue. But yeah, I would say actually, don't be afraid to ask. Whether you're an intern, whether you're an assistant, whether you're a bloody manager, ask and just say, remind me. Could you remind me? Instead of saying, I don't know, I always say, could you remind me what that is, please? And everyone's always happy to help. But I do still keep a word bank. I have it on my phone, and I actually have a little notebook as well. So every time I come across a new term, I just write it down, and then it just kind of sticks in there forever. So yeah. So my favourite memory of working in publishing so far was when my first book that I had commissioned got published. That was an amazing moment. The book is How to Come Alive Again by Beth McCall, and that was published at Unbound. An incredibly helpful, beautiful, intelligent, friendly, warm book, and it touches on some really difficult things, and it's about mental health, and it is about how to bring yourself alive again when you've gone through the worst, or when you're still going through the worst. And Beth is an incredible writer, and it was just amazing just to read her work and just to see how the book came out. It was a real moment for me, and it proved to me actually as well that I can actually do this. I can genuinely go from being a complete outsider of publishing to, you know, finding these amazing writers, helping to create a beautiful book. You know how the world is, you know, no one's perfect, and sometimes you really do need a pick-me-up. The way Beth writes, even though most of the subject matter is quite heavy, it is just an amazing book, and it's not patronizing. Even though it's a mental health book and a part memoir as well, it's not patronizing. It's not saying you need to do this to get better, you need to do this, and if you don't do this, then, you know, it's your own fault that you feel this way. It's not like that at all. It was an absolute joy to work on, and that was a big moment for me. I might go get it because the cover is beautiful. So, one sec. Slow reveal, even though the book's been out for 2 years, it is beautiful. Look at the foil, look at the flowers. Isn't that a stunning book? Honestly, I'm so proud of Beth, and I'm proud of what she achieved with this book, and I'm proud of myself. For commissioning it. This book is fabulous. If you haven't read it, please read it, because chef's kiss, honestly. Agents often email me with proposals from their clients. Sometimes I approach writers directly myself, and I read the proposal. I might read a bit of the manuscript if it's been written, and yeah, if I like the sound of it and I have a vision for it, I then take it to an acquisitions meeting. I pitch the book to the wider Hodder team, and so that would include the sales team, the rights team, marketing, publicity, that kind of thing. I get their advice. Sometimes it can be a mixed bag. Sometimes we're like, yes, we have to have this book. Sometimes a little bit more cautious. But if the kind of general feel is that, yeah, this is something we should definitely be going for, then I put together a costing, and then that kind of churns out a genuine amount that I should be offering for the book. And then I go back to the agent after writing something called an offer memo, stating the kind of royalty breakdowns and, you know, discounts and things like that, and then the actual offer. I submit that to the agent, and if they agree to that offer, then happy days. we've got ourselves a book deal. If multiple publishers decide to also offer for the book, then it goes into an auction, and sometimes it goes to like the highest bidder, but usually around that time everyone meets with the author, and then they can decide who the worthy publisher is. On a day-to-day basis, I'm emailing a lot. I really actually enjoy that a lot, actually, mainly because as a commissioning editor, it's an author-facing role. So you're usually the first person in the publisher the writer meets or the agent meets, which can be daunting because your face is basically representing the wider team. I do really enjoy that, and I enjoy getting to know the author and their agent and what their vision is for the book. And day to day, I'm doing that, meeting lots of authors and their agents, and I'm also talking to the rest of the team. I'm a sociable person, so I really enjoy that part of it. We're not just stuck just speaking to just editors. We talk to everyone, which I really enjoy. There are many meetings that one goes to if you're a commissioning editor. Main one is the acquisitions meeting. So that is where editors talk about their books and talk about the books that they really want to take on. And sometimes you can just pitch one book or multiple books. But yeah, you have to basically say who the author is, you know, if it's nonfiction, what makes them qualified to write this book, a bit about the author, you know, word count, where the book came from, so which agent it came from, and the rights that are on offer, the rights that the agent is offering, and say how you think it will sit with your current list. And then you ask for advice from the sales team, the rights team, publicity, marketing, and so on. And you do that every single week. And that's the main meeting. I often go to cover meetings as well. So if I have a book that requires a cover, which all books do, you go to that meeting as well and you brief that. You just go and see the kind of updates, and you see where the artists are, how they're getting along with the book covers, which I find really exciting. That's not the final step, actually. It happens pretty early on, which I enjoy, and it means that you can really see the book come to life. when it finally goes through different rounds of covers. I just really, really enjoyed that bit. I also have ideas meeting with the rest of the Coronet team every week, where we just discuss new submissions before we take them to the acquisitions meeting the following week. And we just talk about what we've been reading, what's in the charts, what we've been watching. And this is the time where you can basically say anything. Even if you think an idea for a book is really stupid, you can get advice from the rest of your team. Sometimes we have really good ideas. A lot of the time we have good ideas, but a lot of the time this is where you can just kind of word vomit out ideas and just see what works. And it's usually really fun and lighthearted and quite a casual meeting, so I really enjoy that. We also have production meetings as well. So what that is you meet with the production team, and production teams are the people who physically make the book. Once every 2 weeks, sometimes more than that, just to discuss where you are with the book. Has it gone through the legal read? Has it been copy edited? Have we got, text files and things like that? And then they actually set the pages and actually create the actual book. And I find that really fascinating because I could not do that. I find that bit really difficult. And so I'm just glad that I work with an amazing team who've been doing this for years, and they just create the most stunning books. And so that's a meeting that I really enjoy. I would say come with ideas. Be an idea person. I was about to say like an idea guru, but just have ideas coming out of your mouth all the time. We love ideas people, even if the idea isn't fully formed, or even if the idea needs a bit of work. There's no such thing as a really, really terrible idea, honestly. And it's always better to have more ideas than to be asked if you have any ideas and you're just sitting there like, It's really good just to take some time, make some notes on your phone or make a note in your notebook. Always come to a meeting with new, fresh ideas. Try and communicate really, really well. And it's something that I've been working on for a few years now. At the start, I was terrible. Now I'm so much better because I've been guided in a really good way. Communicate with wherever you're working right now, even if it's not your desired job. Have a good communicative relationship with your boss or your manager or whoever. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know how you're getting on. Ask for help. In a role like this, where you're communicating with, maybe even 20 people a day in different departments, or different authors, or different agents, or different managers and things like that, it's really important to be able to communicate really, really clearly at the time and not be too vague about things. And then finally, I would say come with confidence. Going to be representing your publisher to other writers and to other agents. It's a lot of pressure, but that does mean that you are the face of your publisher. And so if you kind of come with bad vibes, you just don't really, you appear that you don't really want to be there, or you don't really care about the book. You haven't really sold yourself and you haven't sold your publisher, and that could have been your one chance. I had to fake it till I made it, to be honest. Being someone who's a little bit more on the introverted side, I'm a bit of a mixture of both, but I'm definitely more introverted. But I really had to fake it till I make it, especially with eye contact. I struggled with sometimes. Fake it till you make it, and just try and be as confident and as enthusiastic as possible. Okay, so one book that I think everyone should read is Clap When You Land. I actually listened to the audiobook of it. It was honestly one of the most beautiful books I've ever listened to. It reads like one long spoken word, if you've ever been to a spoken word night. And the story is tragic, it's heartbreaking, but it's so beautiful. And I won't give you any spoilers, but it is based on a real event. It's based on flights carrying mostly people from the Dominican Republic who sadly died in a plane crash in above Queens in New York. And it follows two young girls who lose relatives in the flight. Further down the line, they realise that they might have a bit more in common than they thought. It's a beautiful book. And what I loved about it the most, actually, it's a story by an Afro-Latina. There's a lot of Spanish and a lot of mentions of different customs and cultures that are known in the Dominican Republic. And so I spent a lot of time actually when I was reading, just kind of Googling, what does this mean? What does that mean? And just learning a lot more about a culture that I knew nothing about. And I just loved how she didn't explain the Spanish. She didn't explain the cultures. She just wrote about it. I think sometimes when you're catering to a mainstream white audience, sometimes writers of colour feel like they have to explain or almost like dilute down their work, because a lot of it is explaining why a character of colour would do this, or, why they speak in this language and then translating it. But, Elizabeth Acevedo, who wrote the book, is completely unapologetic about that. And I loved it. I love the story. I love the twists. I love the really brilliant female characters. There are very, very few male characters in the book, actually, which I thought was quite interesting. That was a real joy to listen to. So I recommend the audiobook of that as well. I'm sure the physical book is great too, but the audio, the author narrates one of the characters. It is superb. So Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. An amazing, amazing book. So in the industry, one thing that I wish I'd known before I joined is there's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of snobbery actually, when it comes to certain new writers, whether it's because of their class, race, or things like that. Things are changing, but very, very slowly. I feel that sometimes people who've been in the industry for so long and they've been part of this publishing bubble, they're so afraid of taking a chance on new genres, new writings, and people with growing platforms that they're just not familiar with. And it's just been really interesting to watch, actually. It's been amazing to see people in publishing have never heard of, but they've had these loyal followings and great writings. They've made huge books successful. And then it's just so interesting to see a lot of these people just act so shocked that these books by, these writers of colour or these working class writers have done so well. I just think it's crazy. And as someone who didn't come from a publishing background, I've got my foot in the real world and my foot in the publishing world, but I'm way more in the real world. And so I actually know what's going on. I know, pop culture, the subcultures, and I can bring that into the publishing world because I know that they have a following, or even if it's something a bit more niche, I know that it can sell, and I know that it can, And another thing I'd say actually is that I honestly did not realize how many white straight Oxbridge people there were in publishing, and are still coming through. And it's fine. Yay, well done, you went to Oxbridge and Cambridge, but that really shouldn't be a prerequisite. Is that the word? It shouldn't be the case that just because you went to those unis that you should get a free pass into publishing. I find that sometimes the actual best editors or other staff members went to regular unis and are part of the real world, to be honest. So I just find that very, very interesting how two universities can churn out so many people in publishing. I think they really overrepresent the publishing industry. And so I would love to see more people of colour and women, both. That'd be fabulous. Working class people in those positions of power, because that's when things can really, really change. We love to put out these press releases. We love to champion these Black writers and, our Black and Asian junior staff, but it should not be a revolving door. I and a lot of other Black and Asian mixed people in publishing, regardless of where we are in the hierarchy, we're all fighting for that, because I'm in a position where it's really important and I need to be as visible as possible to prove that you can make it out of an internship and you can make it out of being an assistant. Nothing wrong with those positions, it's fine. But there needs to be more of us in those higher roles just to prove that it can happen and you can do it. Have a long way to go, but I'm just, hoping and praying that this time round, with this wave of the Black Lives Matter movement, that people aren't just putting out these statements to save face. They mean business, and there are many of us who are holding them to account. Yeah, we'll see what happens, and not just in publishing, but in every industry, because that's the only way we can create change.